And the reason some people go for solar is not just about like cost, it's mostly for availability. You want guaranteed availability. Hi everyone. Today is a wonderful Tuesday afternoon here in Lagos, Nigeria. There's electricity, so I'm enjoying the AC. Anyway, this is the Blue Couch podcast once again. I'm David Adebi. My co-host for today is someone very special, someone very important, and someone that has been behind the scene for the podcast but not appeared in front of the microphone. I think my co-host should just introduce himself.
Wow, prepared to be disappointed. Nice to meet everyone. This is my first appearance on the podcast. I'm Tobe Arize, co-founder and CEO of Power Labs. I guess the yin to the busy yang in some senses. I'm excited to be on the podcast for the first time. I would say I was wearing more of a production hat in the earlier episodes, which was my way of saying I'm too shy to get in front of the mic. But no, all jokes aside, I'm happy to be here and looking forward to an engaging discussion with David.
So, one thing I just want to add is, like people be like, oh, are these on that podcasts? Everybody's doing podcasts, but it's not like a pop culture podcast. Obviously, it's like more this is a technical podcast with business and the rest. But there's something about technology that when you build products or when you build technology, you want to talk about it, and the form that we used to talk about it is not everybody that is going to read your paper that you submit to NeoRips or whichever venue. It's not everybody that is going to read your white paper.
Yep.
So you need to figure out other modalities to make people understand what you are talking about, and this problem that we're trying to solve cuts across all types of Nigerians or Africans, to be honest. So if you have the kind of content you have out there is only maybe technical papers or white papers, you are not really reaching the people that you are solving the problem for. So that's why I personally love podcasts. I learn a lot from it because technical stuff that you might otherwise not even hear some people that don't attend normal interviews, they get to talk about their field, talk about their challenges in podcasts. So I love doing this. I might pretend I don't, but maybe I don't like doing the recording part, but I love talking. And the interesting part is, assuming we record ourselves like all the time, and the content is just that we add other things that maybe we don't want people to hear, but we talk about these problems 24/7. We have like long arguments about different things. We have long discussions, having insights. So we just felt let's take a particular time to let other people listen to some of these things that we grapple with.
And I think that's a very good point, David. This whole concept of different ways of learning, we're in a very unique point, I think, in the energy industry and landscape, where before, like, it was a thing that we left for experts, right, to deal with. So that was your power systems engineers and so on. Like, I didn't care, right? Like, people didn't really care that much about it, just took it for granted. And I think a lot of the changes that the industry is pushing, right, across the board globally, they do require, behavioral changes from us as humans in regards to how we interact with energy, how we think about it, how we consume energy and so on. So taking that point of view, I'm really, really behind this point of that different, we need to think about how to reach people in different ways, how to make energy more accessible to people in how they learn about it and how they consume information about it, right? Some people, are visual learners, some people prefer audio, right? So how do you cater for all those forms of communication? We always talk about Power Labs, and we talk about the fact that we don't want to run an energy organization that, we say it's boring. I'm boring by that. Obviously, that's a bit tongue in cheek. But what we just mean is we're not building this in isolation of the people around us, right? So we want to bring everyone in. I'm sure in the future we'll talk about the different events that will be done at the lab. But the point is, we want to teach energy in a very inclusive way, and this is one of the major mediums of doing that. Additional bonus, we are biased to the fact that we like podcasts, so there is that. But I think there's also some thought to it, and I want to acknowledge that.
Yeah. So, like, what I want to discuss today, or what we are discussing today, is, looking at the couple of changes that has happened since last year in Nigeria. It's the price of petrol, diesel skyrocketing, the price of electricity for many people skyrocketing. These are like maybe quadruple or triple of what it was before. So, a lot of people are now, taking a hard look at renewables. People are taking a look at solar, inverters, things like this. So the question is, why is it expensive, or why is it still expensive in Nigeria? Because when it's expensive, and the kind of economy we are, we are still a developing nation. So, and there's no big credit system that so it's going to reduce adoption. So that's like a big challenge. So we need to look, and before you solve that problem, you need to know why. So I guess I'm throwing it to you, Toby. Why do you think renewable energy is still expensive in Nigeria?
Great question. I mean, obviously there are multiple reasons, but what first comes to mind for me is, even before answering the question of why it's expensive, for me, I'm more thinking about how is renewable energy being sold in the first place to people. Like, that for me is where I want to start, right? Let's take solar for example, right? So on one end you can say solar is expensive, right? And yeah, the high upfront costs, how many people can actually afford that? So you see companies offering financing solutions to help, finance that. Now, the question there is, like, to someone, if communicated in a different way, that is expensive, right? Because it's like, why am I spending X million up front when I'm not guaranteed the cost savings? Actually, whereas maybe they should be thinking about it more as a total cost of ownership discussion, right? Across, I don't know, however long they think they'll be living in that house or operating that plant, and so on and so forth. So before even going into the why it's expensive, which there are a couple of obvious reasons we can talk about, but I think it's expensive to, like, how is it being sold? Like, what is expensive I hate to ask that question, but yeah, like, how do we think about that word expensive when it comes to renewables?
I think you've touched some of the what you said, like how it's being sold. I think the thing is the way we buy things generally, whether it's solar, whether it's cars, whether it's house, and it's a case of where we've not really made our society very credit friendly. So when you talk about solar, it's a piece of equipment. You have batteries, you have all these things that you're importing to Nigeria, right? And you're paying for it once. So even if someone is going to offer you financing, the rate is going to be huge because they are taking a risk too.
Of course.
And with very fluctuating exchange rates, they will want to make sure that, risk management for themselves and they don't lose a penny.
Yep.
So there are a lot of considerations that just makes and you mentioned the fact that how long are you paying it for, like, so the entire lifetime cost of that solar. So I guess when people say it's expensive, for me, I would like to rephrase that question, that instead of looking at, so I had this problem yesterday. This is not solar, but a similar something happened yesterday where I got home, I packed, but I needed to buy a little bit of groceries before I can make dinner.
Yeah.
I was so tired, I decided I'm not going to drive. So I, within my estate, I went somewhere, they didn't have what I needed. So I just picked a cab from there to the mall. When I was to supermarkets actually. So when I finished buying what I wanted to buy, on my way back, I saw a queue, a fuel station, like the fuel station close to the supermarket. And I asked the driver that, is there fuel scarcity again? Because I just wanted to know, so I'll go and buy. I don't want to be in a position where I don't have fuel.
Have to be in the queue.
Yeah, so I was scared, like, what's happening? So he said, I think there was like a slight increment in fuel price based on, or whoever the refinery, blah blah blah. That what people are trying to panic buying is happening. So panic people are buying. I was now wondering, like, okay, well, me, I can't queue for like this for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, my time is actually important.
Yep.
I'd rather be sleeping or doing something else than queuing at the fuel station for 3 hours. And he was like, he has to queue, blah blah blah. And I was like, yeah, I understand. For him, he's using that for, like, it makes sense for him to queue because I guess for him to take a trip, that's for a trip he has to calculate. That's like inputs. He's calculating for each trip that it takes, maybe 3,000 naira. There's a particular part that goes to the amount of fuel they use and the rest. However, I pushed it to there are times you are not able to queue. It was like, yes, actually, you are correct. That, for example, if he's not able to buy fuel, maybe overnight, he usually buys fuel, he goes to queue in the night. If there is first class, he queues in the night and buys it and goes back home. Yeah. But if he's not able to buy, and fuel is expensive, and maybe you see at point A is expensive, fuel station A is expensive, fuel station B it is cheap. But the cheap one, you're going to see massive queues.
Yep.
The expensive one, so he said at that moment, he's just going to buy the more expensive one because of time has changed in calculus.
Yeah.
Because now he needs to think about the fact that if I waste the entire time in the morning to noon when I'm going to get passengers, by the time I now queue and waste maybe a couple of hours, I've lost income.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be penny wise, pound foolish. So I look at the same thing for solar or renewables again, because we look at two things. Availability is a big problem, and the reason some people go for solar is not just about like cost; it's mostly for availability. You want guaranteed availability, and renewables can give you that with proper planning.
Yeah.
Unlike if you plan, because now it's based on you, right? You're planning. I'm not saying there are no, acts of God that could happen or, crazy weather conditions or whatever, but it's based on you most of the time.
Yeah.
But for, everybody here knows what the national grid is like, it's always, I don't know, I think it doesn't have enough blood sugar, so it's always fainting. Yeah. So the grid is always fainting all the time.
Oh my goodness.
So everybody knows how that is.
Yeah.
And even with fuel too, if you are using fossil fuel based generators, you have scarcity, you can't buy fuel. What do you do? So if you care for 100% uptime, at that period, at that moment, the calculus has changed.
I really like where you're going with this, right? It's almost this concept of there tends to be a lot of conversation around the financial cost and how much that actually stops you from making a decision. But people underestimate time.
Exactly.
Like, time is actually a key barrier.
It's expensive.
Yeah, and it's in different ways for businesses or even for individuals even. For businesses, you already mentioned, right? Like, if you're a Uber driver, by the time you're sitting down, because that's a business owner,
exactly,
right? Or if you run a factory, right? Is it expensive when you know that
the loss aversion, like if you say you want to buy the cheap one, you lose more money because you've lost. So I guess it depends on
for who, right?
Yeah.
For who, and even like the individual. Like, this might sound silly, but I have friends that I have this conversation with where it's for them it's even it's not real enough yet that like the efforts and time they're going to take to really change their whole power supply is actually going to be worth it. They're almost like, I'm really spending, or maybe this price increase will eventually come down, or like the effort to go and like spend all that money is like, let me just leave my generator and wait. It's almost like there's a time element there in their own like world, right? it also hinders them from making a decision.
Speaking about this now, I noticed that most of the people I know that they have solar in their houses, they're like people that they need to be online, they need to work, they cannot afford. So if you are like a software engineer,
because time.
You are a product manager, you're an executive that where in real
hours
time
of the day.
you are always doing meetings. You cannot afford maybe you are tuned in with New York time or San Francisco time,
exactly,
London time or whatever. Like you need to work at that moment. You cannot start giving excuses, right?
Exactly.
So you see a lot of people that work from home, they need to think about this.
Yes, 100%.
They need to think about this. But people that most of their work is done within the office, so they push that problem of energy to the office, which is not bad. But I'm just saying that. So the calculus that someone that is a remote worker or software, the calculus that person does in their head is different from someone that a civil servant that comes home by 6.
Yep.
And like, I'm not going to pay 2 million, 3 million. They start like, that's too much money.
Too much.
It's not just to
when I'm just coming to have dinner and sleep.
Watch TV and for my farm.
Yeah, on my farm.
Exactly. Yeah. So this now goes back to what you are using the energy for.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? It determines the weight you attach to it, and how much you are willing to pay for the upfront cost.
Yes.
However, the goal is to make sure everybody eventually gets to use clean energy in one way or one shape or form. But there will be early adopters, people that will first start using it, then eventually it will cascade down.
Yeah, and those folks that we mentioned earlier that are non-remote workers, like we said, this is procrastination. Like they're going to eventually have to make that move at some point. The way the market is going,
when the grid disappoints everyone,
there's going to be a moment, right? But like you said, right, they are just a category of, I guess, energy consumers that you call procrastinators, right? That they will eventually come there, but they're just laggards in that sense.
So look at the double whammy situation, the grid collapsing during a fuel scarcity.
Oh my goodness.
That's like Armageddon.
Exactly.
So you're like, what's happening? So that's like Armageddon. But so these are things that has happened to me in the past, So however, like even generally speaking, even for those people, the question is, even if you know that you are able to make that decision regardless of the upfront cost, we still need to make it. We still need to actually reduce the cost to make solar readily adopted by Nigerians.
I agree.
And when you think about like how much it costs to set up standard systems, not we're not talking of people just go and set up things that I think these are other things that has made people kind of very careful or negative about renewables when they get, I don't use the word quacks, but people that are not proper professionals in terms of electricians or energy professionals, and they just they make promises that don't make sense. So maybe they don't do a proper audit, they don't really understand how their load is, their load profile, and then they just buy 4 batteries. The way they say that, just 4 batteries, just add this kVA inverter, just they just connect the stuff. Sometimes the connection, the electrical work is shoddy. We see that a lot over here. So the question, go on.
No. I like what you were saying, because you are almost raising another point that people don't talk about a lot, and that is like the labor costs associated with this. And this is from the business that's pricing that installation and so on, right? This is the reason that adds to their price, what they charge. Now, obviously, for them to get the best installers, they probably have to pay higher, which means that they'll have to price you higher, right? Exactly. In the end, right? So labor costs are actually a very interesting thing, and that's now raises another conversation. I think, David, we've had this offline before on a high level, but it's almost like at the end of the day, right? This energy abundance concept that we talk about, it's not just about just abundance in like the actual energy itself, but I think it's also in regards to the ease of accessing and using that energy product, right? So I take for example like fuel. There's a reason why it's the main thing, right? Because it's so it's so movable, it's so portable, it's so easy to use. Anyone can own a generator, fuel the journey themselves, right, and operate, and that's actually a key thing in the decision making there, right? Whereas solar, you have to get someone to come and install, ideally.
Yeah, so too many.
There's still a few more hoops, and I mean, could there be a future where you just
There is.
so
Plug and play, where you just you plug this, plug it together, and hopefully when you plug it to our devices, within 10 minutes you have electricity. You don't need to start doing rewiring and do all these things that makes it more complicated. Anyways, we'll talk about that in the future. But my point is, when you look at people's experience, like, oh, someone spent 800,000 and they got a bad job. I'm like, when you paid 800,000 and it didn't work out, but what are you really benchmarking for? You paid 800,000 and you have a deep freezer, you have 2 ACs. I'm like, so who did the job? Do you understand? What kind of batteries are you using? So there's a lot of things, like, I feel there's a lot of details that maybe an average customer don't want to know. Because think about vehicles. Maybe because I'm a guy, I'm an engineer, I like to know how things work, but a lot of people on the road just drive their cars.
Yes.
They don't know how it works.
Exactly. I love this point.
They know how to drive, finish. They don't know how it works. And when there's issues, they see something in the dashboard, the diagnostics, they take it to the mechanic, or they just know that every 3 months I have to service the car. They can see when the fuel has gone low, they refuel.
Yeah.
That's it. I don't want to go further, not to stereotype anybody, but you know what I mean. It's just like that, where people just enter their car, move it, that's it.
Yeah.
And it works, whether you like it or not. Exactly. It does work, right? And I think we might need to have that level where people don't want to know which one is battery chemistry again.
Exactly.
You understand?
Exactly.
Also, some people might just tell you okay, even in vehicles, this is a V6, this is a V8, but many people don't really care that much.
Yeah.
But they will just tell you, they didn't care, but they care in a different way. They don't want to know the details. They'll just say, I want something that is energy, that is fuel efficient too. Exactly. And you buy the Uber Corolla. So my Uber Corolla, for people that are not in Nigeria, it's basically the 2005, 2006 Corolla vehicle. It's so they use a lot of that vehicle for Uber because it's very energy efficient. So that's what. So in my head, I'm always thinking about the fact that if someone had a bad experience with bad installers or whatever, so they hear these things and like, oh, I'm not sure if I pay. So there's this certainty that people want certainty. That certainty that when I'm paying for this thing, this is what I'm going to get.
Yeah.
So there's the UX part of solar that has to be fixed, because
exactly.
I'll give you an instance, and this is technology that is already available. I just think the way people just need to and so for example, your iPhone, you can see when you buy it, you see the battery capacity. The person using the iPhone does not know what charging rate is, doesn't know those electrical terms, but they can see just a number. They might not know what gave them that number, but that number, after a while, they figure that this number must not get less than 90. If it gets less than 90, if it gets to 85, maybe I should change the battery or whatever I need to do to that. So for same thing with solar, like how I was the UX behind the battery. You're just showing someone battery, you're showing the woman that just came back from work tired, you're showing them something amps, you want them to start calculating. So but also the UX, I think improvement in the UX of solar. Look at the way the vehicle has a dashboard that people kind of understand, right? That improvement in the UX will give that kind of confidence. People will now be more confident about. They want certainty. So even if the people know that their vehicle cannot fly. their motor vehicles cannot fly. They know. at least let me say, normal people know that their vehicles cannot fly because there are some people that try to, fly with their vehicles.
In Lagos, especially.
In Lagos, and all these.
And then the motor
Kennyville. Is it what that guy? Is it Kennyville? That guy that does all those. It's something Kennyville that used to do all those bikes to fly over fire like a circus.
Oh my goodness.
Something Kennyville. I've forgotten his full name.
Okay.
So it used to be all these daredevil people. So. But my point is, when they get that certainty, and that certainty can come from simpler UX, right? Mm-hmm. When they start understanding that, this particular solar, you know what you get. If I get home, I know the exact amount of devices I can use, and how long it will last.
Yes.
How long? At least when I imagine I get home, I know that the amount of juice I have left in the battery, into my system, can allow me to do this, do that. But if I say, okay, maybe I just want to use the fan and use my laptop and turn on the light. Okay, it can last me till tomorrow afternoon, even if there's no other charge. But if I want to do this, I want to blend my pepper to make my ofada rice. I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do that. Okay, maybe it's going to last you only 5 hours. Mm-hmm. So that kind of that the way you make solar more accessible in terms of the way you present that information, and when you are presenting this information now, that's where certainty. It has to be what they are saying is what is happening.
It has to work,
So I guess people now be more confident about now. Okay, yes, I understand this device.
Yeah.
They don't need to understand battery technology.
Mm-hmm.
They need to understand all those intricacies about it. But you've abstracted it for them in a way that makes sense, because the way solar is right now, they just make it as one box that you can't really interact with.
Yes.
So when people see something, it's blinking, they start calling that guy.
Mm-hmm.
They start calling one guy. That thing is making one sound. So I guess in that kind of way, people are more confident to say, okay, I want to, I think I should get this box. I should get this system in my house.
Yeah.
Which doesn't in any way says that there are still ways we can actually reduce the price of renewables, because there are things we've not even touched yet. That we've not really touched yet. But I think, in my own opinion, there has to be concerted effort from the industry to change the attitude of people towards solar or renewables generally, to make people understand. So people can stomach some of that cost, because if you think about it, you buy an iPhone for 2 million naira or more than that, and to buy a very good solar system, to now pay maybe 5 million is now the problem. That's, to me, I would think the solar should be way more expensive than the iPhone.
Yeah.
But also, it's the way I think the UX, the way we present, the way we market that technology can now change it in people's head. Because if you tell people some years ago they are going to pay $1,000, $2,000 for a phone, they would have told you, what are you smoking?
Yeah.
They would not believe you. But now they do. They buy phones for, people buy. What am I saying? My tab cost, I saw the price recently. I didn't buy for that amount, just to be clear. But I saw my tab cost 2.6 million naira now.
Yeah. I'm
like, what's happening? Don't let me call some podcast. But I was. So I was wondering. So I was wondering, what's happening? How can people pay $2,000 for a phone when 10 years ago they would not have done that?
Yeah.
So it's the way they've sold the phones. I was like, it's something that you need. So now people use phones. Many people don't have laptops anymore. That's what they do. They do their business. They do all these their things. So I guess the way we market solar, the way it's reliable, it's not like a gimmick. It's not a gadget. That is just like a.
Do you know what this has me thinking about? This has me thinking about technology as a whole, right? Like, for me, the most beautiful and impactful technologies were very complicated on the back end, but on the front end, like as a user, it just like these are the technologies that end up being utilities, to be clear, right? They are so complex on the back end. Like I think about Google Maps a lot. Maps, like I'm so fascinated by maps, just because the complexity behind maps, again, it's not even all. I mean, yes, it's getting more automated, but even a lot of things require manual, going around taking photographs. Like, it's insane the level of data capturing work that has to be done, And then the complexity of bringing that together, satellite imagery plus imagery on the ground, all of that stuff, stitching the images together, the algorithms. But then when you open the app, you just type your address and that's it.
Maybe that more.
That for me is just incredible. And I think I love the point where you're going with this, David, where we haven't done that for energy technologies as much as we should.
Yeah.
Closing that gap.
Yeah.
It's almost like we just expect people to learn the kilowatt hours, and learn whereas maths we didn't make me. To today, I still have a vague relationship with latitude and longitude in regards to my understanding. But the point I'm making is maths did not make me force me to understand that detail. It just I put my address.
Exactly. So
it shows me where.
It's abstractions that we work with. We need to find a way to wrap. There should be a wrapper around the technology. Like so, for different people, there are people that maybe they need to know that the technician that needs to fix
and
it.
They can get that detail.
So they get that detail. But while you are making, you open the box, you see in the manual, it should be a manual for just the normal user that is very intuitive.
Yeah.
That and obviously, to get to this level, there's an amazing amount of work you have to do in terms of safety.
Yes.
Because now you are making them interact with that device more.
Making things simpler is always harder.
It's actually that's actually true. Making things simpler is way harder, But I've always believed that simple is better than complex. Complex is better than complicated.
I like that.
So in my head, I think that's where we should start from. We should start from the I would like to say the UX of.
So who should close the gap more? Actually, a question for you, right?
The question is for companies.
Should the gap close? Okay, you think it's companies, not the user, that should close their
companies?
No, okay.
The user is there. It's what you work. The onus is on the companies to make sure. So and that's where the market will now determine who wins based on what you offer. So I think it's the companies. And when I say companies, different companies, from the people making the systems, from software, from different people in that chain, should figure out how to make this. I guess there are things we could discuss later on opportunities. But like you get what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But generally, some of the things when people talk about solar in Nigeria, like generally, I like that we first, went around talk about some other things before. Like normally, if you talk about solar is expensive, the big elephant is we import these things.
Yes.
Till now there are still custom levies.
Yep.
I think people should talk to their legislators.
Yes.
They should petition them, and we should remove custom duties on solar batteries, inverters. In fact, we should be making inverters. We figure out how to make good inverters locally to make it cheaper.
Yeah.
And you can obviously, I'm not saying so. I'm not trying to create an autarky where you only you don't import anything. But I mean, like if you make good quality, some people cannot afford some of these bigger brands. It's not everybody can afford like a Tesla wall,
Yes.
And things like that. But there will be choice. There should be choice for people to and good quality, but at a more affordable price. So you need more people making. You need to just make things, make some of these things locally, and also the supply chain. Right now, you are dependent on one particular country.
Yes.
It's not an elephant in the room. It's the panda in the room.
Yeah, exactly.
The giant panda in the room, which is China. The batteries are made from China.
Yeah.
So the question is, what is to make a battery is not that difficult. I have a fair idea how to make it. I'm not a manufacturer, though. I say I have a fair idea. I have an idea to make a battery that works, but not in any way efficient. Maybe in a laboratory, yes, I can make one.
Mm-hmm.
However, you need to think about the supply chain of these things.
Yes.
I saw a video on my WhatsApp today, actually.
Mm-hmm.
An acquaintance posted something, and he was posting. He's into all this mining stuff, and and he was posting. People were mining lithium. They're mining lithium. I don't even know. Maybe that's legal to be. Maybe it's fully. But people sell. If you go online, you see where you can buy mined lithium ores in Nigeria, right? So there's so much. So I don't want to also leave the space to start talking about mining policy. But the thing is, we don't know where those lithiums are going to.
Yeah.
So the question is, do we want to do the same thing that we did for oil for 50 years, where we have to ship all the oil to wherever we shipped it to, or do you want to make sure from now you process those lithium ores in Nigeria and you build battery plants in Nigeria?
Yeah.
And I think so the battery plants will be the equivalent of refineries in Nigeria.
Yes.
So those are the refineries of the 21st century.
Yes.
I know some people built $1 billion refinery. I'm glad they are doing that, but that's not for the 21st century.
Yes.
21st century, you will need to, because think about it. I'm not even talking about the big batteries that goes into like your solar system.
Yeah.
Even every electronics that you have right now uses lithium batteries. So it is criminal for we not to be thinking about the supply chain of that. So we need to start, we start from there, making batteries, making, we eventually might get a point where we can make solar panels is not that difficult. We're not making chips. They are both semiconductors, but the type of semiconductors you use for, or the process is not as refined as that for you used to make ICs. So these are things that we can start. And these are things that we have started like maybe 20 years ago.
Exactly.
But wherever we have an adage, I don't want to murder that adage, but like anytime that you wake up is your morning. If when we are waking up now, let's wake up today.
Yeah.
Let's start now. Let us start now. This is like existential to us. Because the price of like right now, oil price is a bit more expensive, and sometimes things that cause this price increase has nothing to do with us. OPEC can increase the price of oil.
Exactly.
Geopolitical things happening around the world can cause it, right?
Yep.
And just change the plans of people, change all their budget and every other thing locally here. It has life and death repercussions over here. They are teaching hospitals not having electricity at the moment.
Yep.
Not being able to pay their bills.
Yes.
Electricity bills at the moment. So they are like life and death, should I say, outcomes. So we should take this serious. We should look at the supply chain of what goes into renewables, and in this case I will talk about mostly solar. Let's look at it. How do we start competing in that space too? If you have lithium ores, don't just pack all those ores and transfer them to make batteries. Make solar panels.
Yes.
Make inverters. You make inverters that are even more maybe resilient towards your own system, because now the way the grid is in Nigeria. So sometimes people buy inverter, they said okay, maybe when they're charging you the grid is had issues, but because you're making in Nigeria, your customers are Nigerians. You're
building with that resilience in
exactly
mind, right?
Because your requirement you would have required for it to be that way. So I feel on the supply chain side we need to do a lot of work. It's difficult work, but we need to start today. Then I think I'll allow you to talk about the other part, which I think is the finance side. You touched a bit, but I think that would also, if you can touch on how supply, like how adoption of solar can, increase if the cost goes lower, and how finance can help us get there.
Yeah. So on the financing point, I think it's a very interesting one because I see both sides, right? I see the side of the financier where it's like with custom duties and so on, right? Like you need to think about how to cover your costs. We're not necessarily the most credit-friendly nation, let's be honest. I mean, if you take a page of fintech's books in regards to the lending companies that have not had much success recuperating, that already is just you having challenges staring you in the face, right? As a financier. So I respect the challenges there, and I think there are ways, right, around that. And that's honestly to David's point around the businesses taking more ownership. I think I always talk about this concept of you need to, when we're building any business, right, you need to think about especially building a business in an industry that's fairly new and up and coming, you have to think about also building the ecosystem around that business. And to that point, when I look at financiers in the space, I ask that question, right? How are you building the ecosystem around the business and making it friendlier for you to be able to pass on some of those benefits to your customers, right? So how are you, for example, what David was saying earlier, how are you, I'd like to use the word because it feels dirty sometimes, but how are you lobbying for the right policies?
It is
right.
It is important.
You know, like how are you lobbying for the right policies? So that way you can bring those costs down and pass some of that on to the customers, especially in the early stages, to get them on board as your customers, right? You have to pass on some of, you need to make it easier for them to onboard. So I think there's that part of things that I feel I'm not seeing a lot of financiers do, right? Take that extra initiative to build advantages, right, that can help them make financing more palatable for users today. Then on the flip side, I think for the users, you could argue, I know we mentioned that there's a problem of marketing, how it's communicated, but at the same time, you could argue that there has to be some level of increased, or at least a longer time horizon to which users make their decisions for implementing these solutions. And yes, I agree, right? We are really saying change your framework of thinking, but the truth is, this is not abnormal, right? Like, if you look at how just a normal human being makes decisions across different things that you're deciding over, you have different time horizons. You don't choose the same time horizon to make a decision on buying a house. That's insane. As the same you used to buy chewing gum from the Malam. Sorry, they depend on the road, right? It's a different time horizon on your decision. Then you're thinking about, not only like, okay, how am I going to live in the house? Am I going to raise kids there? All that different things. So that way, like, so I have a friend, for example, he's currently moving to one of the nicer places in Lagos, in Korea. I won't cast him too much.
Okay.
But you can guess what estate that is.
Okay.
In Korea.
Is it a fruit?
Is it fruit? Oh my goodness. Okay, so excuse me, that caught me off guard. But yeah, it's a fruit. And what's interesting about this, right? So I went to the place, and he's been doing work on it since started last quarter. They're supposed to be moving in 2 weeks. So let's see. Hopefully, all the work is finished. Now they're not buying the place; it's to rent, right? But he's renovating. Now he spent. Again, but I would say like above 30, 40,
$10,000
of dollars, yes. Let's put it that way. On renovating that place. And in my head, I'm kind of like, okay, you could have used that money to buy a place and all that stuff. And for him, his answer was like, and he works in finance, so he's not like, he's a lot more aware of finances and things about all those stuff. And he said to me, he's like, I'm thinking about this for, like, I have a kid, more kids coming in, and the ideal house that I actually want, I need to build it, and I know that about myself. So until I get to that point where I can afford to build that home, renting and still not renovation for me is still worth it, because this is a lease across, and this place is going to be across 5 years or so, 6 years. It's so, that way he's obviously spread the cost across the period, divided it by, okay, I'm spending X per year. It's fine. It's worth it to have the comfort of my home, future children, so on and so forth, blah, blah. Location, new job, where I'm moving. So there are those different things that you consider, right? And I think we should encourage that kind of discourse and that kind of thought, because if you look at this, right, this, again, building the business around your business, you have to give credit to the real estate industry for this. I have to say, like, they've done a good job where, like, if you think about it, like, real estate decisions, they even have people that come and help you. Like, they did a whole industry, even, okay, I don't talk about tax because I hate this. Okay, excuse me, hate is a strong word, but I don't like the industry around tax I feel it's a bit exploitative. But the point is, like, in the US where, like, you have to do your own taxes, there's a whole industry of people that make it easier for you to go through that process and you pay for it. Again, that's different. But I think the point I'm making is, if you look at real estate, like, some of these full service companies actually help you with the process. There's a whole offering that they embed into their whole product and portfolio. So I just think that there is a lot of work to be done, not only on the business side, and probably majority on the business side. However, I think there also needs to be a realization for customers that, like, and the decision around the energy supply that you choose to buy or the source you choose to buy, it's not like you have to think differently about that decision.
I agree with you. I just want to push back a bit.
Yes, please do.
I feel if you do it like you want to make renewables mass market.
Okay.
You don't want to make it niche. Do you understand? You want to make it mass market. Everybody uses a phone now. Not everybody drives a car.
Do people decide on the phone the same way?
Yeah, but they still use a phone.
But there was a curve, right?
They use a phone. All of them use a phone.
Yes, today.
And when you think about because it's something that is fundamental to existing.
Yes.
In 21st century Nigeria, it will be difficult to exist in Lagos without a phone.
Yes.
I think the same thing applies when it comes to energy.
I agree with that.
Right. So if you are going to make solar just something that people that are of a particular demography,
100% not.
But if you want to make it mass market, you need to know that you are going to have to sell this to people that they just want to make instant decision.
Yes.
So that onus is on.
Is that a product thing? Because for me, that's not a financing thing.
It's a finance thing now. Because it's a finance thing. Because when phones came, it was expensive. When SIM cards came, SIM cards were like 40-something thousand.
Yes.
And until they went about to 20-something thousand, this was 40,000 in 2001. That's big money now. Because if you convert 40,000 in 2001 to dollars, it's massive money now.
Yes.
I'm going to do that conversion and maybe in the show notes we'll
add
that. But it is massive. Well, now think about this. If someone paid 40K, so I remember my parents got they got SIM cards then. Then I didn't, obviously, I was in secondary school. I was just getting to secondary school then. Oh, I should not be mentioning that, so you're not guessing. But my point was, then some years later, like a year later, it became, 20,000. Then when it became 6,000, there was massive queues in Lagos.
So can I ask you about the jump from 40 to 26?
All these things happened within, let's say, 3 years, 2001, 2003.
Now, was that only financing or a combination of financing and product development that drove costs down?
So it's not financing. This has nothing to do with financing.
Okay,
this is about the product becoming cheaper.
This is what I'm saying. Yeah, so this is what I asked earlier. I was like, is it financing?
Yeah,
that's
so
what
the product became cheaper. I will talk about financing.
Okay.
So the product became cheaper. Like the SIM card itself.
Yes.
The phones too, there are now more phones to buy from.
Yes, exactly.
Now, another part that, apart from when you buy the phone, you have to make calls. Before there was, this is where financing changed, like where you change your product.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what Glow did. Where we used to call per minute.
Yes.
And it used to cost maybe 16 naira per minute,
Yeah.
Then Glow came with per second.
Yeah.
And it made sense to people because most of the time you just want to call someone at home to say, is there light at home?
Is there light at home?
And that takes you 5 seconds, and they charge you a whole lot of money. So, it was annoying. So Glow came with per second. They also reduced the cost and everything. So it changed. So when you look at mobile phone adoption in Nigeria, it became mass market when the price came down.
You're right.
So that's why I said I want to challenge it a bit. I agree with you 200%. But I'm looking at it from the mass market.
Mass market POV,
that do we need to have something similar? And when you now start asking yourself, some things happen too for the SIM cards. Before they used to import them, they started making SIM cards in Nigeria. They make the SIM cards in Nigeria now, but before it wasn't like that. They start doing a lot of things around, and I guess although we've not really gotten to a place where we actually make our phones properly in Nigeria, but we got to a place where the phones, so Transsion, like things like Infinix and the rest. They had, I remember at the time they had like a industrial design team in Nigeria, right, where they collect, they do research, market research. So that's why they come up with phones that actually make sense in Africa.
Yes.
In terms of like maybe the camera quality makes sense for the kind of weather we have, or So I think we need to get to that level and surpass it for solar.
I agree with that.
But what you said about like the how people think about solar, how they make that decision. It's a big decision. But you're going to have different type of packages.
Yes.
Yes,
I agree.
And okay, let me use myself as an example. This is an iPad. This is maybe 2 point something million. This is like a $160 phone.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Xiaomi phone, Xiaomi Note 11, and I use this proudly. Like if any listener is annoyed, just find our address and send me the phone that you want to buy for me. If you are annoyed, I'm using a Xiaomi phone because I'm not changing it anytime soon. But I see we can do both. We look at it from the finance side, how to better financing. Speaking about finance, until band A became a thing, I was using solar also before.
Oh yes.
And then I was paying. So the money I was paying before, it was from like maybe 20-something thousand. Then it got to like 50K per month, and I was paying every month because to me I needed to have uptime, maximum uptime.
Yeah.
So I was paying that money. But when I tell other people, they're like, "Are you insane? You're paying 50K and you still pay normal bill. You still pay for every other thing. So in a month you're spending a lot of money on electricity. But for me, without electricity, I can't survive. And it's not about comfort alone. This is about even being productive as a Nigerian. I can't be productive. But
So you returned it back, did you?
Yeah, now I have 24 hours electricity, so I can't be paying that 50K. So because I never owned it. So there was this financing that they did where I am subscribing.
Okay.
So those are the kind of things that I think can happen mass markets. It's difficult for them now to expand because they are importing these things.
That's what I was about to ask. For the business, is it feasible?
That's why they are increasing their price.
Exactly.
Anytime maybe they peg it to the exchange rates. So anytime there's exchange rate movements, although when the exchange rate goes down, they will probably not tell you anything. But anytime there's like one interesting thing that happens, you get maybe in a year 3 times or twice they increase the rates, which is annoying for me, because I felt, and they don't allow you to pay like 1 year in bulk.
Yeah.
So you pay monthly or you pay weekly, whichever way you want. So for a business, it's hard to make these decisions because you pay for these things in dollars and you're collecting this money in naira, and you're not careful, you're going to lose, right? So but if those things, we had a supply chain of those things in Nigeria, it becomes easier for them to lock to long-term contracts with their own suppliers, right? And also they can get financing from banks easier. So everything just becomes more easier, and that translates to lower cost for the final user. So there are multiple ways, and many people that are living, should I say, apartment buildings, and those are kind of things they might look into. But they might look into things like that where they don't want to start. You don't want to buy another solar somewhere else. So it's just something that is part of your building that you just pay extra money for. There are a lot of models you can look around that can make this happen for finance people to come up with and the rest. But I still really believe that we can educate people about solar, make them understand that yes, for what kind of uptime you need, kind of type of storage capacity that you need, maybe you need to spend premium dollar for that. But even at the same time, we can bring the price of solar where it can be readily adopted by different, like in fact the entire demographic, the entire classes of Nigerians.
I have a random question. It's something that I actually don't know much about. I would love to dig in more, but taking this model of the subscription model. I mean, solar in itself, right, it's pretty good in regards to degradation, right? Like, do they
depends on the type of battery. So battery chemistry matters. So if you use lithium batteries, they can last longer. So
even if, like, for example, the one that they only sold in your house now,
so probably last
in someone else's house.
So like last maybe 7 years, something long like that.
Okay.
And so the panels can last 15 years.
I think 15 to 20 years. So, okay. So I guess they won't have too many issues on degradation.
So depending on the type of
chemistry.
Because if you use lead acid batteries in 18 months, 24 months,
to
change them. we did,
Okay, so
we did some kind of research, and actually we have like. We want to talk about some like our patent multi-node batteries. Yeah, we were looking at, you have all these batteries, but those batteries are cells inside of them. How about if those cells can talk? They can talk, and the battery. So the battery can be a computer, or should I say a sensor node. So imagine the battery can speak and says, I'm having body pains. Can you help me treat my leg?
Yeah.
So because what happens is, when you have all the cells, when some cells degrade, if you don't remove them, it's just going to fast track other cells degrading and eventually the entire battery. So, but when you can find out, okay, one battery is not, people do that even in lead acid where they connect, when they see that one battery is no longer performing very well, they remove that one. But it's usually better to change all the batteries at the same time. But with algorithms, with charging algorithm, like with AI, you can actually balance it and find an offending battery before. This is kind of futuristic, but when I say futuristic, tomorrow is the future. 5 seconds from now is the future. But it's something that can be done where, so we actually, something that will be done, not can be done, it will be done where you have batteries that are smart. And imagine those batteries are so you can stack batteries. Exactly. So maybe instead of one big box, if you open the box, you have small. The way you remove fuel rods from. Let me use that word. Fuel rods. Now start thinking of like a nuclear plant. But you just have. You can just maybe remove an individual array. Yeah. You put another one inside. Just the way you have it at data centers where they have this array of compute. Yeah. And if maybe storage is bad, one storage is bad. Then the entire system still works, but they know that this particular storage is bad, so they might remove that and put another one there, and the music continues. So there is a lot of advancements in even extending the life of batteries, making this system more last longer. But generally, I think if you get the proper chemistry, if you don't overload. If you use it appropriately, and that's where even the UX comes in. If you use like your phone with like, think about your phone has different, when it's getting low, it has a mode where maybe it will dim the light,
battery saver,
it is battery saver mode, things like that. Your laptop has the same thing. There are things that we can build into inverters to have battery saver, so know that okay, at this particular time this socket will not be working, this socket will not be working, but these ones are priority, they must work, so that way you can extend the life. You get warnings if there's a device that maybe has been turned on for a long time, and maybe it is uncharacteristic for that device to be turned on for a long time. Imagine you have maybe a washing machine turned on, or a pumping machine turned on for like maybe 10 hours or something. Imagine you get notifications telling you that you need to do something about it, or even turn it off, or depending on how you want it. So there's a lot of intelligence, and this is Power Labs. There's a lot of intelligence that can be added into the systems to make it more, to make it more, to make the financials make sense, to make it more, to make the maths properly. Because you don't want to buy things that are so expensive in a year, it becomes ridiculously expensive. So if you can stretch the life, say 30% more or 50% more, that's massive, So I think to round up, from my own end, I feel on supply chain, a lot of things has to be done, right? We need to take it seriously, holistically from the top and from all segments of society, especially like the government need to prioritize this.
Definitely.
They need to prioritize this massive stuff that requires serious capital, serious policies. I think they need to do that. Then on the UX side, there's a way, because we want for the customers to be able to say, I want to spend $5,000, I want to spend 5 million naira, I want to spend 6 million naira. You need to get to that level where it becomes not something that is flaky. It becomes something that they trust. If you buy a car, you drive it for 10 years.
Exactly.
So that's where the UX, the reliability, the safety, every all these things, product companies need to work on this to get it to that level. And I guess maybe you want to round up on the finance side. What could happen?
Yeah, I think just to add to what you said, I like the whole analogy of just think about it like selling a car. I think we should challenge energy companies to think that way. Like you're selling a car, how do you sell such a computer into a user, guarantee that reliability that they expect for 10 years, all that stuff, that they feel comfortable enough to make that investment today? That we know that for everyone who's bought a car, unless you're balling, it still hurts when you pay. Like for me, I'll be honest with you, like
I know.
It still hurts when I make that transfer. But honestly, you get the car easier, you're like, okay, one is worth it and so on. Yeah. So and then on the financing side, to close, so like let's build more ecosystems around our businesses to enable better financing options for our customers. Let's also, I think, be bold in how we think about financing, right? And for example, like I like the model that the company that you leverage, David, use. Right? I know it's not that novel, but the truth is they are taking a bit of a gamble in certain areas, but you sometimes require that to break into, I guess, the market or get the customers you want. So I think people can be bold enough to do that, because when they did mention around telecom companies in the past, right? I even remember, like, to even drive the adoption, they had a couple of freebies to get you to even habituate into using it. Like, I remember we used to have midnight calls.
Extra cool.
Sorry, I was about to scream here.
That was extra cool. Please. I don't know. I
you know what I mean?
I will leave it for the listeners to figure out something like the extra cool.
This created a lot of habituation, and it helps obviously customers understand the product more, and obviously want to invest more, so on. So I think yes, like if we can do a lot more of this, be more flexible in financing, obviously doing some lobbying as the financier yourself to get the right policies in place that can help you bring your costs down and finance for customers better. I think we are probably at that point, maybe even you'd be surprised, 40 to 60% there in regards to getting the customer on board.
All right, I fully agree with you, and I believe people that are listening, if they are in different parts of that, ecosystem, we need to work. We all need to work. We need to get to work and get this done, because I believe renewables is our future. So it's not like something that we are saying, it's our future. So that is it for the Blue Couch podcast this week. I would love to. I'm already, waiting to be here again. Maybe I don't know when are we going to be here again.
Next episode is next month.
Next month, okay. Yeah. I think we have more juicier things to discuss.
Yes, we do.
So that's it for the Blue Couch podcast. Bye bye. Have a great month.
Thank you. Bye.